welcome to Budget MTG Decks. All magic fun, all cards under $1. I'm David, and this is my brother from another mother, Ruth.
Hey everybody, today we're going to talk about a fun and effective EDH deck you can build without breaking the bank. Now today's deck is going to be an insane mana ramp deck. You're going to be stupid with mana on this deck.
That's right.
As with dollar decks, there's just one additional build rule, and that is that all cards need to be under $1 in price, with the exception of the commander. So let's take a look at the commander.
Yeah, let's have a look, and we have an awesome commander for you today. We have Omnath, Locus of Mana, for 2 colorless and a green. So for 3 mana, we get a tiny little 1/1, but Omnath has an awesome ability, and that is that green mana doesn't empty from your mana pool as long as Omnath is on the battlefield. So this is also not when phases end or when turns end, it always stays in your mana pool. And in addition to that, Omnath gets +1/+1 for each green mana in your mana pool. So he's basically like a giant battery where you pump all your green mana into, and then he becomes super big. Or he or she or it, I don't know what it is, but it gets super massive. So the role of this commander is going to be to win through commander damage, as he's going to become super big, so you can just deal 21 points of damage pretty easily to your opponent. And the other role is going to be to cast loads of fatties or tokens. As you're going to have so much mana at your disposal, you're going to easily be able to do that. But to make this work, what kind of cards are we going to need, Ruth?
Well, we need 24 mana ramp cards, because we really need to ramp a lot of mana into Omnath, of course. We have 18 mana sinks, so cards that you can just use mana for to do stuff. Mostly tokens. Then we have 9 evasion cards, mostly trample, it's green of course. We have 10 utility cards, we will see later, and of course 38 lands. We didn't put in a lot of lands, well, because of all the ramp, of course, you don't need more than 10 forests, you don't need that.
Exactly. So let's have a look at what the ideal turn progression would be.
Turn 1 we would like some mana ramp, and then turn 2, if you had ramped the first turn, we will already be able to cast the commander. Turn 3 some more mana ramp to make Omnath as big as possible, as early as possible. Turn 4 a fatty, could be that early. And then turn 5, well, fatties or tokens of course. And turn 6 maybe some trample, evasion.
Exactly. Very good. Well, to make this work, the most critical thing is of course that we have loads and loads of mana, so we can store it all into Omnath's battery. So let's have a look at the mana ramp cards. We divided the mana ramp cards into cards that we can drop for 1 mana, 2 mana, 3 mana, or more than 4 mana. I'm going to start with the 1 drops, and that is Llanowar Elves, Elvish Mystic, and Fyndhorn Elves. These are all essentially the same, come down for 1 green mana, they're 1/1s, and they can tap for 1 green mana. The great thing about these guys, of course, they put them down on turn 1, and then turn 2, you will be able to cast Omnath if you hit your land drops properly. And for Fyndhorn Elves, this is the picture that's budget, but we suggest you just get this other one right here because it looks so much better. It's, I think, $1.50 or something. So ugly, the other one.
It's really ugly. Then we have the Arbor Elf, pretty much the same. It untaps a forest, so this could make a difference if you have something like the next card, an enchantment on one of your forests. So the forest could tap for 2 mana.
Yeah, so the next card is Wild Growth. For 1 green, it's an enchantment. We enchant one of our lands, and then it'll give us an additional green mana. Not too bad.
Then we have Sakura Tribe Scout. For 1 mana we get a 1/1, and we can tap it to put an additional land from our hand into play. So we do need to have that land in our hand, so it will only work early game normally. Well, but still, that will be enough.
Yeah, so we can still cast Omnath on turn 2, and additionally later on we get a lot of card draw that we can, if we have loads of extra lands, that's another extra land we can put down on the battlefield. Then we have Search for Tomorrow. It's a sorcery for 3, and it allows us to search our library for a basic land, so it's going to be a forest, and pop it onto the table untapped, very important. But if we put it over here in the 1 mana section, because it has Suspend 2, which means we can pay 1 mana, 1 green mana, and then suspend it for 2 turns, and then it'll activate. So we're almost never going to cast it for the full 3. Right?
Exactly. Then we have 1 with Nature. For 1 green mana we get an enchantment. We can enchant a creature. When that creature deals combat damage, you can search your library for a basic land card, put it into play tapped, and then shuffle your library. You do of course need a creature that gets through. But well, mostly you will have some trample creatures pretty soon.
Yeah.
So it's a very good card.
And even then, it's actually not such a bad idea to put it on turn 2 onto one of, for example, your Finhorn Elves or your Llanowar Elves, and just attack with it 1 or 2 turns. If you know that somebody won't have an early blocker, you're going to get a lot of value out of it anyway. Then we move on to the 2 mana cards. The first one we have is Rampant Growth for 2 mana, which allows us to search for a basic land and put it onto the battlefield tapped.
The next one is Nature's Lore. We can search for a forest card and put it into the battlefield untapped. Pretty much the same, but untapped. Could help a lot.
Could help a lot. And we have Sakura Tribe Elder for 2 mana. Now this card is called Steve because the initials are STE, so that's Steve. So when people say I'm playing Steve, they're referring to Sakura Tribe Elder. It's a 1/1 and we can sacrifice it to also look for a land, put it onto the battlefield tapped. This card you're going to put on the battlefield and only activate it at the end of your last opponent's turn, so that at the beginning of your turn you have your untapped land basically.
Exactly, so you could also use it to chump block with Steve and then just sacrifice it.
Exactly,
Also
smart
possible.
move, smart move.
Then we have Explore for 2 mana. We get to draw a card and we can play an additional land that turn. So just some mana acceleration and a draw, of course.
Yeah, not too bad. Then we have Colony Heart Expedition for 2 mana. It's an enchantment with landfall, so you pop it down on the table, and then whenever land enters the battlefield, you put a, what kind of a counter is it? A quest counter on it, and then when you have 3 quest counters, you can sacrifice it and then look for 2 basic land cards, which are going to be forests, and put them onto the battlefield. Let me see, tapped. But that's still quite a lot because you get 1 card and you're getting 2 lands which are tapped. And as we already saw, we have a couple of cards that help us put down extra lands so that landfall is not going to be hard to hit.
Exactly. Then we have Whisperer of the Wilds. For 2 mana, we get a 0/2 and it could tap for 1 green mana. But if you have Ferocious, this means when you have a creature with power 4 or greater, it will tap for 2 green mana. And with Omnath, it will pretty much always have Ferocious. You also have a lot of big fatties later on in the game, so it will always have Ferocious.
Yeah, very nice guy. Then we have, it sounds like I'm talking about him on a personal level. He's just a nice guy, you know, he's a nice guy. He does good work, he's a nice guy. He is though. Or is it a she? I think it's a she. Whisperer of the Wilds. Nice girl. So then we go to the 3 mana cards, and that is Cultivate and Kodama's Reach. They're both for 3 mana, sorcery speed, and we get to look for 2 basic land cards, put one of them onto the battlefield tapped, and the other one into our hand.
Pretty nice. Then we have Green Weaver Druid. For 3 mana we get a 1/1 creature and it can tap for 2 green mana. Also the same as Finhorn Elder, the Elder version of the Finhorn Elves. It also taps for 2 green mana.
Yeah, for Omnath it's very important that it's 2 green and not 1 green and 1 colorless, because only the green mana stays in Omnath's mana pool. So it's good that we're getting this one. There's also another one that also gives you colorless, but that one's useless in this deck. Then we have the last one of the 3 mana, that's an enchantment, Overgrowth. For 3 mana we enchant a land, and when we tap that land for mana, it gives us an additional 2 mana, 2 green.
Then we go to the 4 mana ramp cards. First off we have Explosive Vegetation, and you can search your library for 2 basic land cards and put them both into play tapped. And shift for the library.
Yeah, it's kind of the same as a Ranger's Path, also for 4. Does the same thing, but in this case it's Forests, which is actually kind of the same as Hunting Wilds, also for 4. Also look for 2 forests, put them into the battlefield tapped. It has an extra kicker cost that you can pay for, and then those 2 lands come in untapped, and then they're 3/3s, but you really don't want to bother with that. Just play them all as pretty much the same card.
Then we have an insane card. This does a really good job in this deck. Karametra's Acolyte. For 4 mana we get a 1/4 creature, so not that easy to remove. We can tap it to add an amount of green mana to our mana pool equal to our devotion to green. So this means all the green mana symbols in permanents we control. Might be good to know that a forest does not have a green mana symbol. It does give you green mana, but it doesn't count toward Karametra's amount of green mana it gives.
Yeah, you really want to look at the cost of the card, and that's where you have to look for those symbols.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, in most games this will give you something about 7 or 8 green mana, which is insane.
Yeah, it's a great card. Then we have also a girl. This is also a good girl.
Yeah, all the mana dorks are girls lately. I don't know.
I don't think we can call them mana dorks anymore at this point. Mana
Dorcas. No. Okay.
I think we're gonna have to figure out what. I think dork is unisex, maybe. I don't know. Alright, then we go to the last one of the 4 mana, and that's Frontier Siege for 4 mana. Enter the battlefield, choose Khans or Dragons. You're only going to choose Khans, because Khan states at the beginning of each of your main phases you get 2 green mana, and since we have 2 main phases per turn, we're going to get 4 mana per turn when it's our turn, which is awesome, because that's a lot of mana. Dragon states that whenever a creature with flying enters the battlefield under your control, you may have it fight target creature you don't control, but there's, yeah, we're playing mono green, so we have no flyers.
No flyers. There's just one more thing about this card. When you put it down in your first main phase, of course, the second main phase, it will already give you 2 mana back, so that way it will only cost 2 mana.
So it starts paying for itself right away. Frontier Siege is a good investment. Now that we have all this mana, maybe we should figure out what we can do with all this mana. Let's have a look at the mana sink. We divided the mana sink cards into cards that produce tokens and cards that help us with removal. Now, when we use the term mana sink, we basically mean cards that help us either by we're able to sink a lot of mana into it and get a greater benefit, or cards that benefit from us having a lot of mana or having a lot of lands. So let's have a look at the first card. Rick, you want to take this one?
It's Fungal Sprouting. For 4 mana we get a sorcery, and it puts X 1/1 green sapling creatures onto the battlefield. And X is the greatest power among creatures we control. So not really a mana sink well in the normal wording, but when you have a very big Omnath, it will produce a lot of 1/1 sapling tokens.
Yeah, and even if you don't, a lot of our big fatties are at least power 6 or 7 even sometimes, so in that case you're already getting tons and tons of little sapperlings anyway. Next card is Snake Basket for 4 mana. It's an artifact, and we can sacrifice it by paying an X amount of mana, and then we get that many 1/1 green Cobra tokens, so little snakes. If you have let's say 20 mana stored in Omnath, well, in our mana pool, then we can get 20 snakes. That's pretty sweet.
Then we have Gelatinous Genesis for X and another X, and then 1 green mana. We get to put down XX green ooze creature tokens onto the battlefield.
Maybe
a lot of X's.
You might want to put an example. Give us an example.
Yeah. So if you put in like 11 mana, X will be 5, so you will put down 5 creatures with power 5 and toughness 5.
See, that sounds a lot more impressive.
Yeah.
5 5/5s. That's good.
And it could be a lot more. I've used this card for like 21 mana, and then it will produce 10 10s. So 10 creatures with power and toughness 10.
That's offensive. Then we go to Ant Queen for 5 mana. We get a 5/5. So for 5 mana, 5/5 is already not bad. Plus, she embodies the essence of a mana sink, because for 2 mana we get to put down a 1/1 green insect creature token onto the battlefield. So what you can do is you can also just have mana, Omnath being really, really big with, let's say, 20 mana stored in our mana pool, and then somebody might say, I'm going to destroy Omnath, I'm going to kill him. And then you can say with Ant Queen, okay, at instant speed, I'm going to make, how did we say 20? Then you make 10 little 1/1 guys. Pretty bad. That's a bad trade.
Exactly. Then we have Wolf Briar Elemental. For 4 mana we get a 4/4, but it has multi-kicker. And that means multi-kicker for just 1 green. For each additional green mana we use, it will put a 2/2 wolf creature token onto the battlefield. Which is of course insane. For just 1 mana we get a 2/2.
Yeah.
Already very good, very impressive. And also this 4/4 itself, of course.
Yeah, so if you got your 10 mana, you've basically got this guy plus 6 2/2s. Yeah. So 2/2 is big difference from a 1/1.
Yeah.
It does a lot more work. It sounds like it's really obvious what we're saying, but during the game you'll notice that those 2/2s do hefty work. Then we have Verdaloth the Ancient for 6 mana. We get a 4/7, and that's a big butt. And on top of that, it's got Sapperlings and other tree folk you control get +1/+1. So that means your 1/1 Sapperlings all of a sudden are 2/2s. That's important because we have more cards that produce Sapperlings. And we get to kick it for X, and then when where X is the amount of 1/1 Sapperlings we get on top of that. So any amount of mana higher than 6 that we put into this guy, we're also going to get 2/2 Sapperlings.
Pretty big. Then we have Hydra Broadmaster. For 6 mana we get a 7/7, already great. And we can also make it monstrous for X and another X and green. Pretty much the same as all the oozes, only then with a body.
Yeah.
We get to make it monstrous X, so we put well, let's say again we put 11 mana in it, so X will be 5, so this creature itself will be 12/12 after that. You can only make it monstrous once, of course, and you put down X oozes, which have power and toughness 5, so 5 oozes, 5 times a 5 power.
Actually, the oozes is the other one. This one actually makes
oh, Hydras, yeah, of course.
But it's exactly the same as the ooze card, except it also has a body that also grows. So it's Hydra Broodmaster is insane. Then we have another card which I also think is quite insane. It's Colonian Twin Grove for 6 mana, and we get a XX guy, Treefolk Warrior, and where X is equal to the amount of forest you have, which is going to be quite a lot because we get a lot of forest because we search for extra forest, extra land drops. So this guy's going to be huge, and on top of that, you also get a token which is exactly the same. So we basically, if you have 10 lands, which is not unrealistic for Omnath to have around this time that you're casting this guy, you will have 2 10/10s. Yeah. Just for 6 mana.
Pretty insane. Then we have Rampaging Balance for 6 mana, a 6/6 trample creature. Already pretty good. Then it also has landfall, which means whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you get to put down a 4/4 beast creature token.
Huge. Once again, we're going to be looking for a lot of lands with our mana ramp, so we're going to be getting extra 4/4 beasts. Then we have Howl of the Night Pact for 7 mana. We get to put down a 2/2 green wolf token onto the battlefield for each forest we control. Once again, we're going to have a lot of forest, which means we're going to have a lot of 2/2 wolves.
And we have Living Hive. For 8 mana we get a 6/6 trample creature, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player, you get to put down 1/1 insect tokens onto the battlefield equal to the amount of damage dealt.
That's going to get really out of hand, especially if you give it some kind of other evasion, not just trample, but so you do the full 6 points of damage, you're getting 6 1/1s every time it attacks. Beautiful. Verdant Forest is our last one for 8 mana. We get a 7/7, and at the beginning of each upkeep, you get to put down a 1/1 green Saproling token onto the battlefield, and each upkeep means your upkeep, then your next opponent's upkeep, then that opponent's upkeep, and the next one, and then yours again. So as the turns progress, the more players you have, the more value you'll be getting out of this card.
Then we have Ovenwall Tracker. It's the first of the removal mana sinks. You get a 1/1 creature, which also states that you can tap it for 2 mana, and target creature you control finds another target creature. So basically Omnath will be back, and each turn you will kill one of the biggest creatures on the battlefield. Really annoying to have against you.
Exactly, it's so simple. Yeah, Omnath is big, this guy says smash face, yeah. Omnath wins game. Pretty simple.
That's it.
We don't even need full vocabulary or the proper terminology, we just keep it short, beautiful. Then we have Silklash Spider for 5, we get a 2/7 with reach. As we said already before, we don't have any flyers, so we need something that's going to stop it. Ulvenwald Tracker obviously helps us with flyers, so we can destroy them. Silklash Spider also helps us with that because we can also pay 2 green and X, and then we do X damage to each creature with flying. We can wipe, if somebody has all these 1/1 spirits in the air, we can wipe them all out.
Yeah, and of course even against dragons, for example, if you put in like 8 mana, you will do 6 damage to each creature with flying, so all dragons die.
They're gone.
Okay, then we have Cloud Treasure for 6 mana. We get a 7/7. It also has Flash, which states you can cast it as if it is an instant speed. So you can just block with it when nobody expects it. It also has Reach, also blocks flyers. When it comes into play, it deals 2 damage to each creature with flying and each player. So this includes you.
Pretty
you could
sweet.
also evoke this creature, another option, for 4 mana, and then it will just enter the battlefield and leave right away. So then it can block, of course, but it will deal the 2 damage to each flyer and each player.
Yeah, well, we can actually block with it because obviously when they're attacking, we can flash it in, block, and then it will die right away. So the creature will still be blocked even though it won't stick around to do damage. What's also really cool about this card is Omnath is going to have tons and tons of mana, as we are probably still going to say 1,000 times more in this video. So that means if somebody does a board wipe or something, then still in your combat phase, you still have that mana in your mana pool, and then you can use it to cast Cloud Thresher, bring it in with Flash. There's still something you can do with your mana before...
but you really can't use it to block. Really.
Okay, you can't use the block. Oh, okay.
It just comes in between the assign blockers and the assign attackers, and then it leaves before you can assign it as a blocker.
No, you're absolutely right. Because
But still, very nice. But you won't evoke it, so whatever. It will just be a 7/7 flash, reach, and deals damage.
Maybe that's why it never came up, because it's just totally irrelevant. Alright, but those are those are not the removal yet. We're still going to go next to the Wickerbow Elder. For 4 mana we get a 4/4, but it does come in with 2 -1/1 counters on it, so it comes in as a 2/2. However, we can pay 1 green mana, remove a -1/1 counter, and then destroy target artifact or enchantment. So, for 6 mana, we get a 4/4, and we destroy 2 artifacts or enchantments of our choice.
Yeah, very nasty, of course. A lot of decks, especially commander decks, of course, have enchantments. You really need something to deal with that, so this is really nice. Then we have Acidic Slime. For 5 mana, we get a 2/2 Death Touch. Could be pretty nice, of course. But it also, when it enters, you get to destroy an enchantment, an artifact, or a land card.
Very versatile. I mean, the body, nobody wants to attack into a 2/2 Death Toucher, and when it's already come in, it's already done its work. It's destroyed that artifact or that enchantment that was really causing you problems. Then we go to Terastodon for 8 mana, pretty steep, but we do get a 9/9, pretty nice.
Yeah.
But what we also can do with this guy is that we can destroy up to 3 non-creature permanents. I mean, so that also includes, of course, artifacts and gems, but any non-creature permanent we can destroy, that also includes lands, 3 of them. Its controller of the destroyed permanents does get to put down a 3/3 token. So we can use it 2 ways. Either we use it to destroy the 3 most annoying artifact or non-creature permanents, and they get a 3/3. That doesn't matter, you can block with a 9/9. Or we can destroy 3 of our things, maybe a 1/1, oh no, it's not the creatures, we can destroy maybe 3 lands if we have too much lands, and then we get an additional 3 tokens, which of course is a lot. Those are the mana sink cards. As we've already seen, we got a lot of big fatties, we got a lot of ways to get a lot of small guys on the battlefield, and we do want to make sure that we get through, also because Omnath is going to be massive but doesn't have trample, so we want to see if we can give him evasion. We divided the evasion cards into cards that give evasion and protect, and cards that are like an overrun effect, which give evasion to multiple creatures. We're going to start with the protection ones. First one is Canopy Cover, an enchantment for 2 mana. It states that we get to enchant a creature. In this case, it's going to be Omnath. An enchanted creature can't be blocked except by creatures with flying, so it essentially gives it flying, basically. And enchanted creature can't be the target of spells or abilities your opponents control, so it also gives him hexproof. It makes it really hard to destroy Omnath, except for wrath effects, and of course, it's going to make Omnath it's going to be able to attack very easily.
Then we have Whisper Seal Cloak. For 3 mana we get an equipment, and for 2 mana we get to equip it, so it costs us 5 to put on Omnath. And then Omnath will be unblockable and has Shroud. Shroud means that nobody can target Omnath. Not you, not the opponent.
Yeah.
You don't need to do that anymore when he has unblockable. You don't need to give it trample, so that's really nice.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of a better version of Canopy Cover. It's also a little more expensive, but it does essentially the same thing in that way. Then we have Gaia's Embrace. For 4 mana, we get to enchant a creature. It's going to be Omnath again. We're going to give it +3/+3 and trample. So that means now if Omnath is 20/20, you know, that trample is going to make sure that it's going to get a lot of the damage it's going to get through. Additionally, for 1 green we get to regenerate enchanted creature, so that means Omnath is going to be a pain to kill, because as long as Omnath still has mana in its mana pool, he's going to be able to continuously regenerate from any damage that would kill it.
Yeah, very nice. Then we have the Overrun card, so which give all our creatures a trample or make them bigger. The first one is Triumph of the Horde. For 4 mana, until end of turn, each creature you control gets +1/+1 and trample and infect. And infect actually states that whenever a player has 10 infect counters on it, he's just dead, he's gone. Yeah. Even in Commander, doesn't matter if you have a lot of life, he's just gone. Sort of like the same as Commander damage, but then different. Yeah.
Exactly, sort of the same. So then all of a sudden your 1/1s, you have loads of 1/1s, all of a sudden they're 2/2s, they have trample plus they have infect. This card, most likely if you have a little bit of a board state, you can win the game with it. Yeah. Then we have Overrun. For 5 mana, creatures you control get +3/+3 and gain trample to the end of turn. Kind of same story, you got a bunch of little guys.
It's just too much damage, they will die. Then we have Overwhelming Stampede. For 5 mana again. Until end of turn, creatures you control gain trample and +X, where X is the greatest power among creatures you control. Mostly this will be Omnath, but it could be another creature which has something like 6 power. So each creature will have +X, +6, and trample.
Yeah, but Omnath is most likely will be bigger than that. So even if Omnath is a 10, 10, 12, 12 is very common. You're going to give all your creatures +12, and trample, and that's what finishes the game. Then we go to a Bellowing Tangleworm for 5 mana. We get a 4/4 creature with Intimidate, which means that this creature can only be blocked by artifact creatures or creatures that share color with it, so it's green. And it gives all our other green creatures Intimidate, and lucky for us, all our creatures are green.
Very nice. Then we have Thunderfoot Ballad. For 6 mana we get a 5/5 trample creature, and it has a lieutenant. As long as you control your commander, which is of course Omnath, all your creatures gain +2/+2 and have trample. So it's an overrun on a stick.
Yeah, and has +2/+2 as well. So as long as you got Omnath, it's 7/7 trample plus all your other guys. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah,
it's going to be doing a lot of damage. Then we have Siege Behemoth for 7 mana. We get a 7/4 with Hexproof. The Hexproof could be relevant. It makes it harder to remove. And as long as this guy's attacking, you can have all your creatures assign their damage as though they weren't blocked. So it basically makes them unblockable, but of course they can still die in combat, but you can make sure all your damage gets through. Those are the evasion cards that help us get through and do a lot of damage, but that's not enough to make the deck come together, so we still have some extra utility cards which help us out. We divided the utility cards into cards that allow us to draw cards and cards that help us against wrath, so the anti-wrath cards. Fried, what's the first one?
The first one is Hunter's Insight. For 3 mana we can, at instant speed, choose target creature you control, and when it deals combat damage to a player, you draw that many cards. It's very nice that it's instant speed, because when somebody decides not to block it, you just put it on. When he does decide to block it, you don't put it on. Very nice. Earlier today I just drew 28 cards with this Hunter's Insight.
Exactly. I don't think we have to say that you cast it on Omnath, right?
Oh, okay.
No. Then we have the next one, Hunter's Prowess for 5 mana. This one's sorcery speed, so this one we got to cast before in the first main phase, before our combat phase. But it does give the creature we target +3/+3 and trample, and whenever this creature deals combat damage to the opponent, we draw that many cards. So the extra +3/+3 allows us to get a few more cards, even if we would get blocked by a 1/1, for example, and the trample allows us to get through, which is kind of, if we just want to smash face and kill somebody, then you can also use it for that.
Very nice. Then we have Soul's Majesty. For 5 mana we get a sorcery, and we get to draw cards equal to the power of a target creature we control. So we don't have to get through, we just draw cards, that's it.
Yeah, if Omnath's big, we use, the 5 mana, so he's going to be 5 less big,
of course,
unfortunately. Yeah. Or otherwise we just target whichever creature has the greatest power, which could be 6 or 7. Yeah. Then we go to Seer Sundial, an artifact for 4 mana. It has landfall, which means that whenever land enters the battlefield under your control, we can pay 2 mana and then we can draw a card. That's nice because sometimes we'll be putting down extra lands on the battlefield, like with some of our land searching cards. That allows us to also draw cards now if we have Seer Sundial. And otherwise, when we're in top deck mode and we pull a land and we really wanted a good creature, we just put it on the battlefield, pay 2, and then draw another card where we can pull into whatever we're looking for.
Exactly. Then we have Soul of the Harvest. For 6 mana we get a 6/6 trample creature, already nice. And whenever another, so not this one, this guy itself, a non-token creature enters the battlefield, we get to draw a card. Under our control, that is.
Yeah. So even our mana dorks or mana dorkettes
Yes.
will be drawing us cards, and we'll be happy to see them when we pull them off from the top of our library. And of course it's a 6/6 trampler on top of that, just a smash face, it's awesome. Then we go to the anti-wrath cards. The reason why we have these anti-wrath cards is because Omnath usually is massive, so it's very hard to destroy it. And on top of that, our protection cards give it protection from targeted removal, like for example, gives it hexproof, gives it shroud, or gives it regenerate or something. Okay, not the regenerate one. So these are the cards that are going to be able to allow us to get some kind of benefit when people are playing a lot of wraths. First one is Momentous Fall for 4 mana. It's an instant, and it states that we sacrifice a creature, and then we get to draw cards equal to that creature's power, and we get to gain life equal to his toughness. Okay, gain life part is not that interesting, but being able to, when somebody says, okay, I'm going to kill your 2020 Omnath, and they say instant speed, okay, I'm going to pay 4 mana, I'm going to sacrifice Omnath instead, and then I'm going to gain 20 life and draw 20 cards. And then it's not such a big deal.
No. And it will be 16, of course.
Oh, sorry, yeah, sorry.
Oh, but still,
right.
Very nice.
I'm 16 still okay.
Yeah. Then we have Ramp and Vigor. For 2 mana at instant speed, we get to regenerate each creature you control. Now, of course, wrath effects are pretty common in commander decks, so this really helps out.
Yeah, there are the few exceptions where they say destroy all creatures, they can't be regenerated, but we found that more often than not, we can regenerate from it, and it's really, really nasty when somebody plays, they've been saving all their mana and they play a wrath effect, and that's the one thing they had to stop you, and then you're pretty much always going to have the mana up for this, because Omnath stores the mana in his mana pool, or in our mana pool, so even if somebody seems, the Omnath player seems to be tapped out, you've always pretty much got 2 mana to regenerate and use this card. Then we have Yeva, Nature's Herald for 4 mana. We get a 4/4 with Flash. And you can cast green creatures as though they have Flash. So this is also going to help us against the Wrath things, because you may have Omnath that's very big, somebody wraths the table. Then what you can do is you can cast Yeva, because it's still Flash speed, and then all the mana is still in your mana pool, so you can just use that same mana to recast Omnath or to cast other cards from your hand at instant speed. So you won't lose it as the combat phase ends.
Yeah, or the spell resolves, of course.
Yeah.
Then we have Fresh Meat. For 4 mana at instant speed, we get to put down a 3/3 green beast creature token onto the battlefield for each creature put into your graveyard this turn.
Yeah.
So this will include tokens, because tokens will be put into graveyard and then be gone.
Exactly.
So it will be a lot of creatures.
Exactly. It could be that somebody says, oh my god, this person's got 10 1/1s, let's board wipe it. And then you go, okay, thank you, now I've got 10 3/3s.
Yeah, nasty.
Yeah. Then we have Praetor's Council for 8 mana, very expensive spell, but we get to return all cards from our graveyard to our hand, and we have no maximum hand size for the rest of our game. So there goes their wipe, and then we cast this and we get everything back in our hand, and yeah, we don't have any problems with our hand size anymore.
Exactly.
Those are the utility cards. Let's have a look at the lands. For the lands, we've got 37 forests and 1 non-basic land, so that's 38 lands.
The first one is Rogue's Passage, and also the last one will be Rogue's Passage. It can tap for 1 non or colorless mana, but you can also tap it for 4 mana and then make target creature unblockable. Of course you do this on Omnath. It's another evasion card actually in the deck. Pretty nice. So we only have 38 lands, I already said it. We do want around that amount. We don't want to have less than this amount.
Never less.
No, because we do need our land drops, especially early on in the game, and of course we have a lot of cards that state whenever a land enters, or when you have a lot of lands, something big happens, something like that. So we really need some lands, but we really pushed it to the max with this.
Exactly.
38,
we
yeah.
pushed it to the minimum as well.
To the minimum. That's
so we pushed it to the max in benefit, and we pushed it to the minimum in how many lands we could use. Yeah, we can't really talk more about this. It's just those are the lands. Alright, let's go to the conclusion. In conclusion, this deck is a lot of fun. I mean, Omnath is a house. If you enjoy having a lot of mana at your disposal, if you enjoy having big fatties, if you enjoy having loads of tokens and going wide on the board, Omnath is the guy for you. I mean, the feeling is just awesome when it's turn 1, you got your mana dork in your hand, so you cast it, and then turn 2 you can already cast Omnath, then turn 3 you can already attack with Omnath being a 4/4. The turn after that is going to become even bigger. You're doing so much damage so quickly, and the great thing is that after your first main phase you can attack with Omnath, which is big from all the mana you've pumped into him, and then in your second main phase you can use all that mana and cast your spell. So you're kind of doing both things. You're playing a Voltron style deck, and on top of that you're also playing a token deck and a fatties deck all at the same time.
That is it exactly. I think this deck is really nice for beginning players too, because, well, of course you have a lot of big fatties, which beginning players really like, but you also have the stuff to make sure you have a lot of mana pretty early on in the game, so you can just start doing and smashing face early on in the game, which is very nice, I think. One of the weaknesses of the deck is that, well, of course, flyers. We don't have a lot against flyers, and we don't have a lot of removal in the deck. We have something for any sort of card, but we don't have a lot. So there's really something that really annoys us a lot. We don't have the means to deal with it mostly.
Well, we don't really care about that because this is the deck, this is the threat. This is the deck that sets the pace for the game. We're the ones that people are afraid of. We're not removing bother, they have a creature. No, we're huge, we're attacking, they gotta try and stop us.
Exactly.
And we do have some things that destroy artifacts, some things that destroy enchantments, we have some things that destroy flyers, we have one thing that destroys creatures. So in essence, we do have some tools at our disposal, but very little. Why? Because if we'd have more, then Omnath would be able to do what it's supposed to do much less effectively, which is become huge and smash face. On top of that, the deck's pretty affordable, right?
Yeah, the deck is just below $37. We did this calculation on magiccards.info. This is a site that compares Magic prices in a lot of shops, and we use all the medium prices. So you can really buy this deck for below $37, which is very cheap. Anybody could buy this deck if they really want to, of course.
Yeah, and that's a lot of mana storage for so little money.
That is.
Now we're going to ask you to subscribe, because if you subscribe, it lets us know we're doing a good job. It also allows us to, it helps us in either case to spread the word, let other people know about this channel, and it also gives us a fuzzy feeling inside, lets us know that we're doing a good job, and makes us happy. And we'd like to thank everybody personally, if we could, for subscribing to this channel. Ruud, do we have a question of the day?
Of course. If we were to do a gameplay video of Omnath, if we would do that, of course, in action, how long or short should this video be? You can leave your answers in the comments below this video.
Yeah, so just basically let us know, should it be, what is it, just 5 minutes with just some comments on how it played, or should it be 10 minutes with some highlights, or 15 minutes with some short gameplay, or up to 20 or even half an hour where you actually get to see live the moves turn by turn. Yeah. Just let us know in the comments. Well, that's it. So thanks for watching. I'm David.
And I'm Ruud.
And this was Budget MTG Decks.